We're going to go ahead and call our work session to order. Kimberly, can you take roll, please?
President Bill Smith.
Here.
Vice President Victoria Nicholson. Here. Secretary Lisa Milton. Treasurer Larry Williams. Trustee Brent Dawson.
Here.
Trustee Shauna Gamble. Trustee Richard Lindsay.
Here.
Okay, we will observe our customary moment of silence. Richard, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to entertain a motion for the agenda with an addition of naming Richard Lindsay as the acting secretary for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Move on to members of the audience may address the board on agenda items only. When you address the board, if you can turn in one of the green sheets with your name and info that's on the thing over there to Kimberly at the end here. And then we ask that the comments be kept to 3 minutes or less. I will do a timer and try to indicate to you to ask you to wrap up your comments at the 3-minute mark. Seeing none, we will move to consent agenda, personnel and other. We have employment, and then we have MHSAA membership resolution.
Right, so background on the employment offers have been accepted pending board approval, successful validation of criminal history record checks, completion of unprofessional conduct checks, and validation of credentials. And then also with the adoption of the Michigan High School Athletic Association MHSAA membership resolution for the year August 1, 2019 to July 31st, 2020, is required to allow participation in statewide tournaments and sports programs. It is the recommendation of the superintendent that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
May I entertain a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Discussion.
Yeah, historically that's always been the case, and so there's restrictions about how you can, how soon you can become eligible for an athletic program after you've done a transfer. I can't give you a lot of specifics on that. This is about membership to make sure high school and middle school are recognized by MHSA so that you can participate in postseason tournaments and so forth. And then there's a number in our population that just reported in February for our high school, and then a number reported for our middle school. And based on those numbers, they determine what classification you're in athletically. So like tomorrow night we're in the girls soccer semifinals for the state competition, and we're in Division 2, competing in Division 2. So that's how we make those determinations as we go through. I mean, that's the best general thing I can tell you about. It just depends on what time of year they do. So if they, in the beginning of the school year, if they transfer in, they're not able to play football for the receiving district for that season. If they, after the football season is over with, I believe, yeah, if they go in the second semester, they still can't play football the first semester of the following year. But sometimes, based on the timing, they have to skip a season before they can do it. And we try to manage that with that. We're also managing very well the foreign exchange students that come in the district. You know, we have, advanced experiences in volleyball, things like that, and determine whether or not they're eligible to play. So.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Richard.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Move on to, next is report of the superintendent, special recognition, new hires.
Okay. Esther McPherson is fills the position of assistant cook in the food service department. Ms. McPherson is a graduate of Richfield High School. Sarah Parker fills the position of second grade teacher at Gordon Elementary. Ms. Parker attended Northern Arizona University, where she earned a bachelor's degree with a major in special and elementary education. I'm very excited to have her on board. I just met with her today. She is from the south of Tucson, and she and her husband moved to Marshall. I'm really excited about having her on board. Brianna Peoples fills the position of assistant cook at Harrington Elementary. Ms. Peoples is a graduate of Albion High School. Danica Price fills the position of bus driver in the transportation department. Ms. Price is a graduate of Albion High School. Boy, I'll tell you, when you get a good driver, it's really helpful to celebrate it up in station therapy because it's hard to tell. Christian Rafferty fills the position of business services accountant in central office. Ms. Rafferty is a graduate of Homer High School. She obtained an associate degree with a major in accounting from Kellogg Community College. She is currently pursuing her bachelor's degree in accounting from Siena Heights University, where she is expected to graduate in December. She got her on board recently. Paige Williams fills the position of sixth grade teacher at Marshall Middle School. Ms. Williams attended Central Michigan University, where she earned a bachelor's degree with a major in integrated science and a minor in English. Any of those needs to have another question?
Hi.
Say hello to the board.
Hello, board.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to board topics. Takeaways from viewing of A Common Thread.
Yeah, so we did the common thread at the school. There was some controversy around that from parents. We had some discussions with a number of folks. Came back and had a good discussion with staff. We had another showing of common thread, which led to some pretty interesting comments, public comments in regards to that. But the bottom line was, in particular, there was a gentleman who came to the board and expressed his feelings about it and said, what are you going to do? And I just want to let you know what actions we've taken in regards to that. The first one is offered to have students that may still have questions or concerns to sign up in the counseling office at the high school for one-on-ones or small group discussions with me. I had two conversations and discussions around tolerance or lack thereof that some of our students are experiencing. So we had a good discussion with that, but nothing really outside of that came forward. And then in talking with our staff, the key takeaways from this experience, I sent this letter out to all parents and guardians at the high school to explain what we're planning to do. First takeaway is we should not show a video film to our students that is simply open opinion without surrounding it with facts first. Our students need to know within what context this is produced and why. Some scaffolding discussion should have occurred in this situation so students knew this is documenting personal views and sharing about people's own experiences historically, growing up in Marshall and Albion, stating clearly this was about the adults in the community and not about the schools. There was confusion during the video of whether or not it was about the schools. People going, why are we watching this? The expectation was we were going to do that. We were going to set the stage and have that conversation, but because of the timing of it, we failed to do an adequate job with that. And then we had panel discussions set up, but because of timing, it was difficult for us to do an exhaustive process with them about their questions and answers. So with that, we took solace in that and knew that we needed to change it. We will not, second point is we will not allow non-curricular subjects to be introduced to our students without the prior review and approval of the superintendent. And I do give a lot of authority and control over to the building principals to run the building. But there are times where we may introduce non-curricular, guest speaker or something like that. And anytime it's non-curricular, and we realize the curricular all goes through the curricular committee, comes to the board, curricular, materials are set aside for 30 days for the public to come in if they need to look at it. There are things that we do all the time that are implemented by the state and by MPD that are non-curricular, such as okay to say, the Attorney General comes down and does a presentation on sexting to our high school kids and our middle school kids. It would probably be prudent for us to get a letter out or an email blast out to all parents and guardians, let them know this activity is coming up. Not to have a dialogue about whether we're offering that activity or not, but simply to give you a heads up. And so what we call passive approval, if we don't hear from you, if you have an objection to your child sitting through that in the presentation, we're going to go ahead and assume that they're approved and they will be able to participate. If a parent has an objection, then in that correspondence, they can let us know that and we'll make alternative arrangements for that child to be out of process. Okay? The third point is parents will be informed of any non-curricular events authorized for presentation of students. And like I said, it's gonna be a challenge because, when we talk about anti-bullying or cyberbullying, we talked about issues on health, we'll be talking about vaping coming up soon, those types of things. And so we're gonna try to stay on top of that and make sure that at least there's a notification of things so you can have your eyes wide open before we move forward with those discussions. Okay.
I think the good thing is we have several vehicles to deliver those messages, whether it's robocalls or whether it's email blasts or things like that. So I think we can get things out there easily.
And that video, common thread is a viable video. As I said in my email, it wasn't anything inappropriate about the video itself. It was just helping the students understand the opinions of others and how to listen to understanding of that. And we didn't do enough prep on that. And just case in point, that video will be around, and it will be shown publicly. It will be shown in Albion, it will be shown in Marshall, and it will continue to be one of those conversation pieces that people can springboard off of and continue their work in trying to build understanding of college.
Any questions on that?
It just seemed like there was a lot of difficulties of talking about it in the place in particular. And so I don't know if they talk about age, etc., and more about historical, so maybe 50 years ago, so maybe 200 years ago, we talked about ways and concepts to relate to academic students, because different things from different backgrounds and different things.
Well, for that to specifically be brought up will be usually in our social studies and our government classes. And there are actually particular lesson plans around those discussions. It doesn't hit every kid at the same time, so we have to work through that. There are additional programs I'd like to talk about in a second about that we're going to start looking at. But yeah, so there's a piece of that in the curriculum, but we don't have a particular set aside class for that.
Yes, I appreciate the follow-up, and I think that's a perfect way to deal with it. And it was interesting to me, ranging from friends that contacted me to my son that was part of the 10th grade that didn't get the discussion, how people viewed it differently. And I think the things that you talked about will address the concerns that people raised. Bottom line, it's okay to talk about. We need to talk about these things. So, yeah.
I think a line line about, that came up in the dialogue about this video was, it's not the video that really attention on it's just what it became as a catalyst for that thought and that process. And I think that's legitimate. I think when we have discussions, and we'll be talking about the College Day today and some other discussions around that, when those come to our forefront, kids are going to be at different levels of understanding about that, and whether they care at all, or if they do care, if they're passionate about it. So we have to learn how to, as Larry was talking about, we need to learn how to have appropriate discourse and to be able to listen to the other person's perspective without judging the person's character or demeaning them for having those positions. And then to figure out a way to do the old Socratic discussions where there's good questions and leading to critical thinking and those kinds of things. Love to see that expound.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to B, employment, background checks, and verifications.
Yeah, so in the after-school parent show of the common thread, there were some accusations that were made and some finger pointing with one of the particular individuals, artists that was working with us, who will continue to work with the group that we're working with, which is the Michigan Council of Arts and Cultural Affairs, and what is it called, MCACA. But I want, because of that, there was a challenge out there that we didn't do what we were required to do. I asked Lisa, our director of human resources, to come up and talk about what our policies say and what our law says in regards to this, so that we can make sure that we all feel confident that we're moving forward in the right direction.
Good evening, Board. Lisa Iyer, HR Director for the district. So one of my responsibilities is verifying all background checks and completing those for employment, as well as our volunteers in our school district. Revised School Code Section 1230 stipulates that all public school districts must complete a criminal history record information check through the state of Michigan. That is a state and federal check through fingerprinting. That must be conducted on all full-time and part-time employees, and any individual who is contracted to work in our schools regularly and continuously. So that's our third-party contracted employees with High Tech, as well as edu staff, so the custodial and substitutes. Relative to all of our new hires, I sit down with each and every new hire, provide them with the forms that they need to complete. If they have to be fingerprinted, they go through the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. Usually I get those prints back within 24 to 48 hours from the time of submission. I verify all the information. If there's anything in question, that is reviewed with the superintendent. If we have an employee that's coming from another school district, we are able to share prints, so we may request from the other district, provided that the individual did not have any gap in employment with the former school district, to share those prints. With all of our new hires, in addition to that, we also do an iChat check. We are mandated by law to complete the iChat check for any individual that we are getting prints from another school district, but we cover it all, and we just do both new hires new to the system, as well as those new hires who have been in the system. Again, same process with our third-party vendors. They have to go through the fingerprinting process. We do an iChat, or I do an iChat check on them as well. They also have to fill out a form that indicates whether or not they have been convicted of a felony, misdemeanor, or pled no contest. All individuals have to fill that out, and that gets submitted to me. We verify that that matches with the background check that comes back. If it does not, then we inquire with those individuals. Anything that's a felony, again, it has to go to Dr. Davis for them usually. If it's a felony under the revised school code, crimes, which could be any felony, a misdemeanor of criminal sexual conduct in the 4th degree, any child abuse, and anything involving cruelty, torture, or indecent exposure involving a child. Those aren't even subject to employment. All individuals are then declined the offer of employment. Any felony that doesn't relate to that is subject to being presented to the board if the superintendent wants to move forward with the hire, but that has to have board action, so. Those guidelines are also referenced, just so you know, in our board policy 8142. In regards to volunteers, we define a volunteer as anyone providing a service to the operations of the building, the classroom, or students whereby the person has direct or ascribed authority and or accountability over children not their own. So we're talking about individuals that are chaperoning a field trip, providing direct interventions for learning to students, supervising an individual student or group of students during non-instructional times. We issue annual volunteer forms each year. We distribute those to the buildings distribute those to their parents. Our process is those are done every single school year. So the expiration is one year from the date of check or June 30th, whichever comes first. So it's an annual thing that we do every single year. So I know some board members have had to complete the form. We do require identification, a copy of a driver's license or state ID card, so we can verify that the individual we're doing a background check matches with what's been completed. For field trips, if someone is not chaperoning another child and they're only chaperoning their own, we don't do a background check, it's not necessary. However, for overnight trips and out-of-state trips, our policy is we will complete a background check whether or not someone is supervising someone else's child or not. That has been our practice since I have been here, and I've been here for 13 years now. Any background check, employment, and or volunteer that populates an arrest or disposition of an event is evaluated. There's multiple things that we look at for misdemeanors. How recent is it? How many events do we have? Does it involve children? Again, I referenced earlier the felony. Anything questionable and all felonies, as I mentioned, is reviewed with the superintendent, and that includes any volunteer and any individual looking for employment. All information that's conducted is processed again through the HR office. That is held confidential. The only thing shared with the buildings when they are looking to see if someone is eligible to serve as a volunteer is whether or not they can be in the building or not. It's either a yes or a no. And then just to kind of give you an idea of the volunteer background checks that we do, typically it's a partnership with Albion College. We do background checks with the Albion students who volunteer in our buildings, our Maymester students, again, anyone who's going to chaperone, and anybody else that may be in our buildings more often than just that Halloween party or Christmas party. We don't process volunteer forms for that. Just to kind of give you an overview of this year, we processed 680 volunteer forms. Again, Albion College students, that's parents, grandparents, guardians, and other outside organizations. 115 newly hired district employees, so we've had fingerprint background checks done on those as well as iChats, and we've processed 120 background checks for high tech and edu staff as well. So almost 1,000 background checks just this year alone. Any questions?
Questions?
2.1 is fingerprints are digital now, they're not the anything, right? I know people are probably thinking, boy, that's a lot of things. iChat is an agreement that we have with the state, which means police would be authorized to use that system. We used to have some people run the trial, that is separate and protected. So that if anybody wants to come through the state and do a double check to make sure you're managing the information correctly, they can do that, and they've actually gone around the state in the last couple of years and done that. I don't think you've been tried.
We have had an audit through iChat as well as through the CRIS system for the employee background checks. And those
Do they go up to the regional law enforcement center?
Pardon me?
They go up to the regional law enforcement center for the?
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is volunteers and parents. Parents may have histories that we would not, sometimes we would look at that and say, well, in a hiring situation, we didn't bring them on board. And so sometimes we have to do, parents always have a right to be able to talk to the educational professional working with their children. How they do that, in other words, circumstances they do that, that's within our purview. So there are times where we may say you are not eligible to be on school grounds unless you are authorized directly by the building principal to do so under direct supervision, or for the purposes of only an official meeting with your teacher and the counselor here discuss those issues and have those conflicts. So there's a lot of different varying levels. In volunteer work, especially when we have things like you're going to be voting on pretty soon, it's a grant, and we have people that come in for the grant, and they're going to be involved with our programs and our kids. What we normally would do in those circumstances is do a background check, rely on also the agency to do that as well for them to their own level, and then to make sure that when they come in, they're sporadic and they're non-continuous, so they don't meet the muster of having fingerprints, but you do meet the muster of having an iChat background. And when they're in that situation where it's sporadic and non-continuous, we just don't have them have an individual direct supervisory authority or authorization of the children. We make sure that there's another staff member that's associated with the program to pursue art, music, poetry, et cetera, et cetera. So there's things that we do all the way through that are different levels of how we apply it, but it's all consistent.
Questions?
And by the way, I did check with a lawyer, True Law Firm, and discussed the previous concerns and accusations that were made. She said, no, you were following the lawyer's law.
Yep. We'll go to C, content laden clothing worn in school.
Yeah, so this is an interesting situation. We have a T-shirt that's been, one individual wearing a T-shirt that said it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. So it's a very clear association with religious edict. It also is a very clear, direct statement about our young people that are gay, straight, or gay, bi, LGBTQ. And it's a statement against lifestyle or making people long for their choice of lifestyle. So in and of itself, it made people uncomfortable in school. I've had conversations, I had a conversation with them at quite some time, talked about what his purpose was. Our legal team said you really should use this as a teachable moment, because protected speech and protected freedom of expression is highly regarded and guarded by the U.S. Supreme Court. And so we went through that. I had a lot of case law reviewed with our jury law firm about what is appropriate, what's not. And there are very small slivers of impact it can have on discussions like this. In particular, it says when we see that when we have history where such speech creating a substantial interruption with the educational process. If we have history of that, that would put us in a position where we could actually talk to individuals and say, if we're going to wear content in speech like that, we're going to have to pick it up and go home. Or turn it inside out, but we should have given them options, three options. If we don't have history of that, then we have to talk about do we anticipate it being a substantial disruption to the education process. And for that, how the courts interpret that saying about anticipation is pretty wide and very hard to hit the standard. So there's a lot of case law that we're going to review for legal advice in our closed session. But I can tell you that courts will tend to look at what are the facts behind your anticipation of disruption. And that has to be really significant and verifiable and documented. So there's got to be data behind that. It can't be because people have hurt feelings about what people say. So when I look at that saying, we actually had 2 more students show up today with that t-shirt. So now we have 3. There's been my contrary to what social media indicated. We found out that was a room early, and we processed through that. The saying on that shirt offends a number of people, but being offended, as I said, is not grounds to say that they can't have that shirt. The best way to talk about this, I think, is through mediation and conversations about tolerance, and tolerance of individual differences, and tolerance of individual perspectives and opinions. When you look at what I've handed to you in the joint packet, it references things like the court rejected the school's attempt to have black armbands removed because students were going to be using the black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. And when they failed to demonstrate that such student action would create a material and substantial interference with schoolwork and discipline, the courts ruled against the school system. A mere desire to avoid discomfort and unpleasantness did not overcome the First Amendment right. The second ruling was, the court ruled there was no categorical harassment exception to the First Amendment clause of free speech. So, if we feel that the speech is going to be harassing or offensive, there's no categorical dismissal of that right to free speech. The court ruled also that a school that permits advocacy of the rights of homosexual students cannot be allowed to stifle criticism of homosexuality, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then it said, they ruled that the fact that the expressive activity might cause hurt feelings, offense, or resentment does not render freedom of expression unprotected. In the federal court, the federal appeals court, though, they did actually try to intercede and rule in favor of the school to prohibit a content-laden shirt with an anti-gay message, but the U.S. Supreme Court vacated that decision, saying that by the time it got to courts, the individual offender or person appealing offender was going to graduate from the school, so they basically vacated it. So they had not been on record. The U.S. Supreme Court was supporting that. On the other side of the coin, there was also court action upheld the right to quote gay speech in schools, but that is perfectly appropriate for public school systems. So you see the tightrope that we have to walk at times between protecting First Amendment rights to freedom of speech and understanding that kids can feel marginalized, attacked even, or offended by words. In some, though, the First Amendment's underlying principle is to encourage discourse, even when the message may be unpopular or contrary to it. So it goes back on the shoulders of the district to try to figure out how do we process through this juggernaut of freedom of speech versus offensive behavior, or perceived offense. So with that, I decided to bring, other than having individual conversations, we have a pretty strong gay straight alliance, and that is the gay straight alliance. So we had allies within that group that look for just simply providing acceptance and tolerance for people's individual lifestyles and differences. And we support that, and it's been around for a number of years, I think at least 4. With that, 2 members of GSA talked to me right after the short first was noticed, and they talked to me about tolerance. And I said, well, you know, we're in the midst of, we've gone through assimilation with our families from Albion. We've gone through the conversation about tolerance to some degree. What we need to do is get to diversity, equity, and get to inclusion, so every child is included in the process of being educated. But they hung up on tolerance, and so I listened to that and thought about how that was going to be. They came and did a sit-in at the beginning of school. They had posters. I looked at the posters, and every one of the posters was about acceptance and tolerance of people's choices and lifestyles. It was about tolerance of beliefs and tolerance of love and different things like that. It wasn't to make straight people feel bad. It wasn't to say gay people is the only way to go. It was actually a good, it was really just opening the issue of tolerance. So from that, I asked staff advisors of every single group, student group that we have in the high school, to a meeting to talk about how do we move forward with this agenda on tolerance, because we can't get to inclusion unless we really truly have an environment of tolerance that's in our hallways, in our classrooms, and in one of our buildings. And with that, we've come up with a two-level, two-pronged approach. One is to work with our student leaders. You know, we put out an invitation, I wrote a statement, and I put it on your table that is going to be read verbatim to every single group that we talk about. And it's an invitation to send student leaders to what I call a Tolerance Leadership Council. And we're going to give them an opportunity to get a little training, that those that want to volunteer in this group. We're talking about student leaders that can then model appropriate and be good stewards of that whole concept about listening to understand. We're talking about having to interact and work with them before school starts. And we want to hold on to that group and manage that group throughout the year so that they can hold us accountable to the issues of tolerance. We're also going to do some other planning around our staff discussion, because not all of our staff either understand the depth of that or are not as engaged as they could be, and so we want to make sure that we give an opportunity for all of our staff to have discussions around that. In the end, I think we have to figure out how to make sure that we're not making the other person that we're having discourse with, if we disagree or we differ, or we take a different side of what that person is saying, we don't demean them, we don't make them less of an individual because of their opinion. And opinions are important for us to listen to. We have to listen to better understand, and then try to find common ground and coexistence. And this school system has got to be a safe haven from all the isms that go on out in this world. We have to have our eyes wide open. Our kids have to learn about those things, but we shouldn't be having these things interfere with our ability to educate kids in the country. so I'm really committed to that. We're gonna be looking through that lens as we consider who the next high school principal is gonna be. And, we're gonna be pushing this envelope for quite some time. So I don't think you can ever give up that struggle in that discussion.
Questions, comments?
So I think this is a good start, and I guess I would ask how you engage the bigger community in that discussion, because one of the things that always fun on Facebook is to refer to as libtards on Facebook. Libtards on the school board, which I think is a liberal retard. I'm not sure what that is, but that's something that we're referred to often. Completely inappropriate, but there's a lot of people in the community that don't think we ought to be delving into this at all. I think we should, and I think we should engage the community in it. So I just will say that. I'm also interested what the role of the ministerial association is. I know the separation of church and state, but there are a number, this battle is going on within a couple of the churches as well. And I think there would be allies in this discussion within, I'm thinking of Melanie Chalker specifically, but there's more than Melanie. I think they would be helpful maybe in the community conversation about it. Whatever we do at school, when kids get home, they're getting something different at home than what they're getting at school. And that's my concern.
And I was walking down the hallway today, and these shirts were handed out. 350 of these shirts were handed out.
Awesome, yep.
And these two young men were talking in front of me, and he said, "Did you get a shirt?" "No, I didn't get a shirt. I don't believe in that." And I said, "What don't you believe in?" "I don't believe in gays." And I went, "Well, that's not what this shirt's about. Because this shirt's about celebrating tolerance of individual differences, like my individual differences and like your individual differences. It does represent about the LGBTQ community, but it also represents acceptance of everyone's individual differences. And we're talking about race, we're talking about intellectual when it comes to our young people with intellectual needs and experience. We have our race group that's involved in this invitation. We have the NAACP that's involved in this invitation. We have the Race Straight Alliance involved, or hopefully will be involved with this. We have our National Honor Society. We have Interact from Rotary. We have STEM from Exchange. We have all of these different groups to think about how do we create tolerance in our organization. And 350 shirts were made and 350 shirts were given out. And I hope they heard that conversation with two young men, so that maybe they'll have a little broader sense of that. But it's not going to happen easy in our system, within the walls of our public schools. And it can't happen without the alliance and partnerships that we have with, like, the Resilient Communities Initiative. So do you remember when we did the cooperative high school, when we did the annexation? I said you cannot put the yeoman's work about this whole issue about diversity, equity, and inclusion on the backs of the public schools. We're going to do our part because we have to create balance and fairness and all of that so that every child has an opportunity to learn to their fullest potential. That's our job. Our job is not to change the minds and hearts of individual community members out there that may not have kids in school or never did. That job is left up to somebody else to think about. And I think that work needs to be done in parallel to what we do. And we will have our influence. We will have our detractors. We're always going to do that. Every time you have a conversation, I kind of equate it like that. A pyramid where as you inverted pyramid, as you go to the point people, they're kind of like akin and understand what you're doing, and you go up another layer, and they're not so akin, but they're broader, and you have to convince people that they should be a little more open in these conversations. And each time you go up and go out, that population becomes more and more, and every time you take a step up, you take 2 steps back. But eventually, as you go through this process, people start becoming more and more open and aware of what we're talking about. Like I say, you don't have to agree, you just have to accept and acknowledge that people have different viewpoints, other than your own. And you need this other view. And with the board's support, that's the direction we need to go.
Some extent, this is the religious argument too, about how people with different religious views, and so how do you discuss that without letting people of different religious views and being not maybe tolerant and being able to understand each other without being I guess I see that church don't really come out in Black History Month or Women's Month or things like that, and so, in the main general power, it seems like it's more of an association and, I guess, the people that we need to be careful about how we discuss it, and good people with arts and culture, we discuss it effectively, having a state of
Well, more and more, I mean, our kids are gonna walk down the hallways regardless of that. It could be one of our students in a special ed program, or it could be, I mean, but we have issues where names are called or statements are made against an individual, and we dig into it, and we try to find out whether or not it's a pattern that would be labeled bullying. And we talked about the bullying last time we had a closed session, that there's criteria for that, and I talked to our leadership team about that and said, if you find that the instances meet this criteria, then you're the one that labels it bullying. Teachers don't, staff don't. They describe what the behavior is. The student tells us what's going on. Too often now, I think the kids and the parents are using the word labeling the behavior as bullying, and actually it's just bad behavior between people. But if it's a pattern, if there's loss of power, if there's an effort to try to get multiple people against one individual, if it's persistent, if there's history, that's bullying. And I told the building administrator, you're responsible for making that determination. And then what discipline happens after that. But too often we have these things that happen in the hallways where kids kind of throw comments out, kind of like general, or maybe targeting someone and they act like they didn't say it or whatever. That's the climate in our buildings and hallways that we need to address. And we can't address that without talking about following individual differences. Like I said, we can't unpack every issue out there, but we can certainly raise the bar on how we treat each other as humans.
Any other questions?
So with your head nod, you're okay with me.
We're gonna have to have a discussion on closed session as well. Okay, we're gonna move to D, grade 5, parent survey results related to projected average class sizes for grade 6 in 2019-20.
Kelly's going to do this presentation.
So what you're getting is kind of a handout, what the board is getting is just a handout from a survey that was conducted of our current 5th grade students. Here. If you have an app, you can Thank you. Okay, so the middle school wanted to reduce, wanted to limit the number of students in the classroom to 25 for next year. So in order to do that, we kind of had to figure out how many 5th graders are planning to attend in 6th grade. So the elementary principals got together and created a survey that went out to the 222 current fifth graders that are enrolled at our school. So we did it in Google form and paper. So people got it electronically via newsletters, via our website, or social media, etc. And it basically had 5 general questions: ask for their email address, ask for their intentions for 6th grade, which there were multiple options we'll talk over in a minute. The school that they were currently attending, it gives them an opportunity, a blank space to indicate any reason they would like to share, and then an open space for anything that they would like to say about that. So as far as responses, 138 responded via Google, 19 responded on paper, which is 71% of our current enrollees, which when you're surveying, the national norm for statistical surveys, for internal surveys, is about 40%. So we had a pretty good turnout of 71%, meaning that we have some like valid information here. So I think it's important for us to kind of look at the ratio of responses to know that we are, so of those 222 students, you know, the responses kind of equal or are representative of the number of students contained in that building. Walters is our bubble building, so we try to maintain two classrooms at each grade level, but Walters, because of the size of their facility, they're able to contain our bubble class. So more responses are going to come from Walters because there's 3 sections of fifth grade there. But as you can see from the bottom, between Gordon, Harrington, Hughes, and Walters, you know, we have a nice representation from each building. So it's not as though out of these responses, all of them came from one building, right? Which is kind of nice. So all of this information for the board is in your packet. I just tried to make it pretty for the audience. So, as far as, you know, what that, oh, sorry. Let's skip. That's not nice. Come on, Prezi. What's up? Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna. Here. Okay. So, always blame technology. So, the good news is that 96%, 95.4% of, or 95.4% are coming to Marshall Middle School. We have 6 students, 6 parents and families that indicated that they did not plan on attending. So out of that 71%, 95-ish% are planning on attending Marshall Middle School, which I think, you know, sometimes perception or we start to hear things or start to think about things that just doesn't seem to honestly be the situation. So of those 6, 4, or 2 of them are moving outside of the district, 2 are moving out of state or moving far enough away that they are choosing to go here anymore. And then we do have 4 people who are selecting a school within the area. In the board paperwork are the open response comments. Now, I'm not going to share those out via slide or anything with the audience because that wasn't part of the survey. In no way did you say, hey guys, we're going to put this out for public consumption, whatever you wrote down. So the board is privy to those individualized comments, so you'll see that there as far as what schools, etc. A really interesting thing, no one from Hughes indicated that they would not be going to Marshall Middle School. There were 2 from Gordon, 2 from Harrington, and 4 from Walters. As far as ratio of students that were not planning on coming to Marshall Middle School in the fall. So if the projection of 95% were to play out for the entirety of the 222, that would equal 210 current 5th graders would proceed to Marshall Middle School in the fall. Which I've been trying to keep Dave up to date each week because we've been collecting this information for about 6 weeks and we've had a few pushes for responses and things like that, just to try to like keep everybody informed. So one thing that we've been also trying to do is have like various activities. So if the board doesn't know yet, every elementary 5th grade attends a tour with the middle school where they eat lunch, which is kind of cool because when you ask 5th grade students what are they most nervous about, they're nervous about lunch and combination locks and lockers. Dave does a really good job of hosting a middle school parent night, which includes a tour, and it's led by counselors and teachers. We have currently at fifth graders who are Skyping the sixth grade classes, at least once a week, just to make a connection with the teacher in face. And then we are hoping to have our fifth grade attend the end of the year talent show at Marshall Middle School. It didn't work out this year because our talent shows were literally at the same time. Some other plans that have been mentioned in order to just help that transition is maybe a pen pal program, a combined local field trip perhaps, a shadowing experience offering, maybe hosting a parent night at the elementaries instead of the middle school, or in addition to, Mrs. Morrick's class is working on a sixth grade survival guide, which I think is pretty cool for us to talk about with our fifth graders, and then perhaps a teacher transition conversation before school starts. Once they get those caseloads, you know, we have CA60s, and we love our CA60s at the elementary level. We like treat them like they're our babies, and then we hand them off to the middle school. And I think sometimes it's a lot of information to digest, and so maybe, you know, having that conversation, because I've had a student at Walters for the last 10 years, and even I am like nervous about leaving. You know, you have your child that goes, you know, you are used to seeing, in many cases, the same principal all the time. It's a very natural, anxious period for our fifth graders. And so, you know, anytime that there's anything outside of that typical anxiety that you start to worry and wonder, you know, sometimes communication is best. So this was our attempt at providing Dave and Dr. Davis with the information about the great transition. I don't know, that was more than 5 minutes, I'm sorry.
Any questions?
Well,
Do we have any students come in from other areas, like on a regular basis? Do we have 10 students that come in to choose to leave from high school to come in? Is there a rough estimate of how many leave from outside of Marshall?
I know right now I have 5 kids from outside. They're like moving into the, like, one I'll be in Down Creek. They want to choose Marshall. I've already given them before. I've got another family coming in next week. We pick up, exactly, we pick up about 6, maybe 10 in new students, but we also do lose some. So overall, it will kind of be 4. I want to add one thing that we did an open house for parents during the school day where they can come in and do a visitation, just going to various classrooms in the morning, kind of a little tour to support, so they can actually see what it's like during the school day. And a lot of positive feedback. There were 14 families that came in. We're very impressed with what was going on. Actually, the people were crazy. It was a positive day. We had great feedback from the parents. They appreciate the fact that we're available for them.
Perception is that slow changing wheel. You know what I mean? It really is sometimes. Like, I've been looking for that plaque every meeting because it was there for 13 years and it's not there anymore. And there's a clock right there. But my perception is it's still there. I still look over there, right? So we still just like, you know, when you think what you think, that's what you think. So it's Dave's done a really nice job. Our fifth grade parents have really complimented Mr. Turner on just his availability, his openness, transparency, and the planning of the events. It's planning and facilitation of taking hundreds of people and putting them in small groups. And it was really, we had a lot of positive feedback. So,
A lot of these items are coming from.
good.
You know, I really appreciate your ability to make it, take ownership of people. Looking at this at a district level, rather than just people.
And I was on the Chicago trip when this was being done, so I think pushed everybody in the buses to get them done, so I appreciate that.
yeah, it's captive audience moment. That's
It was
what
good,
I call it.
good time to do it,
Like,
yeah.
guess what, guys?
There were-
We're on
there-
the bus for 3 hours.
There's been a lot of discussion, yeah. So there's been a lot of discussion that I've heard in the last couple of years about this issue, and seen a lot of stuff on Facebook, and it seems to be more towards Marley, and I know just with numbers with Marley, they don't have the capacity to take that many kids, so it can't be 50 kids, because we know about that. So I mean, it's really helpful to have the numbers and be able to say, everything's fine, we're addressing this, and there is this sort of lingering thing with the middle school from a couple of years ago that kind of carries forward, and as people send their kids there. I mean, I'd say my son, I mean, we've had kids there, and they had really good experiences, and they've gone on are having good high school careers, and that's been my experience. Did every single kid have a perfect experience? No, that's school. So, I mean, I appreciate the information, I appreciate putting the effort out there and having the communication about it, so.
I think it's really important for us to remember that all 4 elementaries are sending their 5th grade families from that school to the middle school for the first time to join together as a class of 220. And that's big change. And, you know, I won't belabor the issue about Sunday elementary, but I'm just saying.
We did talk about that a couple years ago.
It's big change, and so when you try to prepare as best you can, all of the 5th graders getting ready to come over, we can do the best we can to each of the buildings, but ultimately, the stuff that really resonates is that we're all together, walking in the hallways, going to the cafeteria, and out to, in the gym and different things like that all together. So it's an important transition, and we're doing everything we can to make that available. I think, you know, Dave's request and our support for him to try to add a teacher so that we can reduce class size is important. Because those kids at 6th grade really do need that level of nurturance and support that a smaller class size may be able to provide, as opposed to a class size of 50. So,
Any other questions?
I guess just one other observation, because you are married to Marley graduated as well. There's a number of Marley parents that graduated from Marley that don't send their kids to Marley, and it's because of that move from that class of 25 into a class of 200 when you're in 8th grade. And if anybody wants to talk about that, Marley, that's been my appraise. I mean, Marley is the right for some people, but Marshall Middle School is where I send my kids, so.
My wife said that she could change one thing about the education, other she would move to the middle school in 6th grade instead of high school. And I think that transition was a lot easier.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to E, Marshall Middle School changing from 7 periods to 6 periods for 2019-20 school year.
All right, so 5 minutes? Is that all you need? All right. Gist of it is this. Don Beck had us work this year on looking at data to help us drive some of our school improvement plans. And when I started looking at some of our absences and tardies and things that were happening, one thing I noticed right away in our schedule, beyond the fact that first thing in the morning we have a lot of kids that are late to school and or tardy or unexcused. That's our number one place in the day where we have some absences. I noticed that all of our our core classes, we were averaging around 10 to 12 issues. Now that meant unexcused absent, kid was sick, or there might have been a tardy. And then when I got to our last 2 hours of the day where we offer these enrichment classes for our 7th and 8th grade students, they were as high as first thing in the morning. So then looked at some of the information that I had from parents about what was happening in the middle school and some of the behaviors that were happening, and predominantly it was the 6th grade parents that are concerned about things that are happening in the middle school, and talking with them about the class sizes and kids not feeling connected and various things when I did the town hall meetings. And then I also talked with our staff about what's happening. We have this issue with 6th and 7th hour with our enrichment classes, where if I am a non-music student, that in 7th grade, in essence, I have 8 classes that I'm taking, 4 during hour 6 and 4 during hour 7. And I have my gen ed teachers are teaching these classes, and they have to be highly qualified and certified to teach those classes, which works okay as a 7th grade student. However, when you become an 8th grade student and you're non-music, you have to repeat some of those classes, because I want my teachers to spend more time working on the core content rather than creating another enrichment class. So avoiding the situation where I'll have a teacher that teaches, let's say, pre-algebra, algebra, maybe an eighth grade math class, then astronomy, and then a STEM class. So 5 different classes that they need to prepare. And then I look at my M-STEP scores, and whereas we have improved, meaning our kids have grown from where they started last year to where they are this year, the growth is good, but we still have too many that are not proficient. So I want my staff to spend more time and energy working on the core content, making sure they're working bell to bell, making sure that they have excellent, diverse lesson plans for the students to meet their needs. And at the same time, work on the structure of our building so that we're not dealing with kids that are either late or not showing up. Because in fact, those same kids and families, or the same students that are not showing up or having issues with those enrichment classes, when I talk with parents, they're like, really, we don't care. So that creates conflict for not just that student, but for that teacher, and then for that parent. And the purpose for creating those enrichment classes was essentially to help those students before they move to high school to figure out what classes they might be interested in taking at the high school level, and those classes aren't offered anymore at the high school. So what can we do in terms of a structure or a system in our middle school to help improve the climate so that we're not in this situation where we're losing students because kids either don't care or they're not passionate about being here? Because I am seeing that they are showing up and doing what they need to in their core classes, but maybe not so much with these enrichment classes. And then I also have to deal with some state reporting issues. Don't want to bore you with this, but right now we have 4 different schedules that we run. And because of that, the 4 schedules, when it comes to pupil counting or where we have to do the count day, in essence, they're based on those 4 schedules. I have really 2 days for me to capture full FTE for every single student, unless I add or create some crazy schedule, which I had to do twice this year in order for us to get our full FTE. I don't want to bore you with the details, but now we can go to 1 schedule every single day. Well, actually 2, because we have our A and B days. We'll still keep that for our art, health, and phys ed, which will rotate every other day all year long. And then for 6th grade, still the music every day, every other day, and then they're opposite, so that stays the same. The one thing that we're going to add also to help with building climate and culture in our school is advisory every day for 20 minutes. That's one thing that our teachers have definitely said, we really need to see our advisory kids every single day. Helps with communication, helps with building a team. Now, I will say they're not necessarily saying 20 minutes is the magic number, but 20 minutes allows us then to have 56-minute classes across the board for every single student, which then increases the music time, those classes for band, orchestra, and choir also to 56 minutes. Currently, it's 45. So that increases that time. So everything looks good except for one little hiccup. If I am an 8th grade student and I'm in band, choir, or orchestra, and I want to take Spanish in a 7-period day, works great because I can have band 6 hour or choir or orchestra 6th hour. Now I've got that extra enrichment class. All right, 7th hour I can take Spanish. In a 6-period day, music and Spanish in the traditional sense will all happen at the same time. So 41 kids out of the 54 that qualify for Spanish would have to make a choice. Do I stay with music, or do I move, or do I take Spanish? So Dr. Davis and I got together and shared some ideas. So we've created some options for those students where if they want to still take Spanish, option 1 is they take it as a 21F first thing in the morning during advisory time online. And then, of course, we have after school time available for them if they need to continue their studies while here at school. That's one option. Option 2 is, Oh, 21F is, it's online learning, any student can do that. So if I'm at the high school and I want to take Mandarin, because we don't offer Mandarin, student could take that. We don't offer Spanish, in fact, I mean, middle school students could request to take, actually could take Spanish online during opposite music if they were so inclined. Every student, as long as they meet a certain criteria, is able to do online learning for one class, a semester. So that's middle school or high school, doesn't matter. That's one option, first thing in the morning during advisor. So 20 minutes with a teacher in there to help supervise like they do at the high school. That's one option. Option two is they can choose to take Spanish and not be in music. And that's that. Then just take Spanish in high school. I'm sorry, take Spanish instead of music. Then the third option is just take music and don't worry about Spanish. Now I have to share with you that talking with the high school staff, of the kids that, because we just, this is the third year that we would offer Spanish at the middle school. The intent of offering Spanish at the middle school was to create a situation for students to take Spanish all 4 years in high school so that they would move on to, let's say, AP Spanish as a senior. What I have learned in talking with the counselors, students are stopping after their sophomore year. They're getting that third credit, and then they're choosing, which is well within their right, they're choosing to go down a different road, maybe another AP class or another science class or just something else. So in terms of the high school and the Spanish department, their sentiment is, look, if students are not, and it's tough as an 8th grader to make that call, but if they're not really committed and parents aren't committed to taking Spanish 1 year in the middle school and 4 more at the high school, then really they should wait until the high school year to take Spanish. That's their opinion. So 3 choices just to recap, because that's the elephant in the room. I have staff, 72% of the staff approve or want a 6-period day. They feel it'll help with the climate, help with the culture, help with some behavior issues that we're having in school, help improve our attendance. However, all 4 music teachers, although they feel it's palatable, they appreciate the effort of offering the choice of online learning for Spanish first thing in the morning. They appreciate that. Of course, they would prefer the 7-period day. So the 3 choices, just to recap. 1, online in the morning. Choice 2, take Spanish and no music. Choice 3, take music and Spanish at the high school with the 6-period day. As I said, 72% are in favor. Music is you have 4 music teachers. So 31 teachers said, yes, we want it. 9 teachers said, we would prefer to have 7. And again, of those 9, 4 of them are music. And then 3 of them were like, hey, we're good with whatever. They didn't care either way. So it's a hard decision. We're never going to make everybody happy, no matter what schedule you put together. But given the current climate, talking with parents, meeting with them on several occasions, the number one thing that we need to shore up in this building is the culture and the climate, and creating a structure or a vehicle that takes care of that for 625 students. And, you know, one may say at the expense of 41 kids. I mean, I get it. I understand as a parent. I had 3 students, or 3 of my own children. My current, well, he'll be a junior next year, took Spanish as a 8th grader. My 2 older ones that just graduated from the Coast Guard Academy, and my other daughters at the Coast Guard Academy, didn't have it. So I can tell you that it doesn't impede one's ability to be successful in life if they don't have Spanish in 8th grade. Yes.
Does it take 5 years to take AP test, or 4 years to stay in high school? You've got a total of 4 years, or a total of 5 years in order to do the AP part?
I think depending on the student, you can do it in 4 years anyway.
How many students do we know are taking AP Spanish? Do we know how many want AP Spanish this year or not?
It's just very small, based on what I learned from talking with Rob and Cottons, it's a small number.
I can tell you we had 4 students requesting Spanish 4 for next year. And we're going to go ahead and let that class go. Because when you get into Spanish 4, that's so complicated with the nuance of the language. It's got to be conversational. It's got to be almost like three-dimensional. It loses a little bit of it when you're online. When you're talking Spanish 1, online is pretty much a legitimate approach to that. But if you get higher up, you really want to have that face-to-face engagement.
And I believe there's an honors credit if you take 3 years, or you get credit for 3 years of a,
It's a requirement for honors.
for honors, yeah. So that's what's happening. A lot of kids are dropping it after their 3rd year so that they can take some other AP class or something like that, typically.
So, how long have they had their 7 period schedule? Because that wasn't a good for
No, and honestly, I want to say maybe 3 years. About 3 years, yeah.
So, did people give you a lot of good feedback when they went to 7?
Yeah, initially, people were really excited about it because it allowed students to take some different things, we offered some STEM classes, and I will tell you, we will still offer those sections for any student that doesn't have music. So, for example, roughly 200 students in 6th grade right now. Of the traditional trend is about 130 students will take a music class next year, band, choir, orchestra. So that's 70-some students roughly that will take one of the electives or enrichments that we're already offering, and we're just going to assign it to them, and they're going to get 4 of them. And the beauty of that is only 7th grade teachers are going to teach these classes. So next year when they go into 8th grade, they're not going to repeat the same 4 options as a student, and they're only going to be with teachers that they know. Currently, with the 7-period schedule, I have to use every teacher in this building, every 7th and 8th grade teacher, and some high schoolers, and they're going all over the building, which creates some structural issues. So for example, my 7th grade hallway, which is right down by the gym, during 6th and 7th hour, I only have 1 teacher down that hallway. And that's a major causeway. The reason I only have 1 teacher is because all the teachers are in different labs in different places throughout the building. So supervision is an issue for our middle schoolers when they need supervision. We really need to get back to holding their hands to get into class. Anyway, so that is a benefit that the teachers appreciate that. We're starting a brand new curriculum in science, and I really want our teachers to spend their time and energy learning that curriculum. Same with our M-STEP scores. We had some nice growth, really pleased with that. Our teachers need to spend their time and energy with that rather than creating another enrichment class which is nice. The enrichment classes are nice, but it's not as important as the core. It just isn't.
Families, because I knew that we were talking about this with their perspective, and it felt like they weren't really informed or understanding when the student was kind of upset because their mother didn't tell them about their elective schedule and never gave it to them, and it was too late, or that their kid wasn't able to, wasn't selected for Spanish, like that this was a negative for their kid. It just seemed like there was confusion that they didn't really understand, and one kid in one family was told by one of their teachers what was going to happen, and then the other kid was kind of clueless. So that would be one thing that I don't feel like it's been communicated.
And that is intentional. The reason it's intentional is in order for us to go to a 6-period day, we had to wait to find out if we could get an additional special education teacher. I cannot do that without an additional special education teacher, and I did not find out officially until last week that I'm getting a halftime special ed teacher. So for me to go out prior to getting the confirmation that, hey, I'm getting a halftime special ed teacher and I can actually move forward with this, to create, I've been doing this long enough, and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and then by the way, it doesn't happen, I've just created hysteria. I will clearly communicate with parents what's going on at this point. I've got a survey already ready for those 41 families. One, they're gonna get a paper copy, and I'm gonna email the parents so that they can choose one of those 3 options for their kid and what they wanna do. And then I'll also communicate for those other 14 students, do you wanna go with Spanish or do you not? But again, remember, the intent is, think about really, if you wanna go 5 years, 1 in middle school and then 4 more, Spanish is for you. If you're not so sure, just wait for that. And then I'll communicate also in terms of everybody else, you're getting a class.
So, let me clarify something. First off, a lot of the dialogue has been ongoing with Dave, and also within the middle school, has been internal, as we're trying to figure out how does the structure look and what's the impact. The fact that we had to wait around till last week until we had an official OPW for bringing a halftime additional special ed teacher is because the special ed allocations and teacher slots comes from the ISD. And it comes from discussion with us at the table where we say, here's the caseload, here's the projected caseload, and this is where you can add staff or where you can't add staff. So that's really not in our control, it's not in Dave's control. Once that gets communicated to us and we say, okay, are we allowed to post and move forward with those positions, once we get the green light, that's when Dave can move forward with the structure.
I did talk with teachers about it, but it was all internal. What if, what do you think, how does this impact you, how does it impact students? And I do know that some of that information was probably mistakenly shared, which then I think some individuals received some emails. But they have a right to be concerned, absolutely. Not only the teachers, but the students, the 41 kids. I mean, they're thinking that in order for them to be successful in life, that they have to have this. I mean, it's, they want to challenge and motivate their students. I completely get that. But I've got to look at the greater good and what can we do to help really stabilize this building so that we can ensure that we maximize our number of students at the high school and meet their needs as best as we possibly can. Shoot, our classes go from 53 minutes to now 56 minutes every day. Actually, depending on our schedule, some days they're 53, some days they're 45. So now they'll consistently be 56, which the more time on content, the better.
The families I talked to weren't opposed to going to six, and some of them were glad that happened that they were going to six. It was just more of the communication, because it's a small community and people talk and just they didn't understand why they weren't including it, so we just letting them know about that. Six and
Thank you. Absolutely. I like to be, you work with me long enough. I don't sugarcoat anything, here it is. It's all right there, so we'll definitely be doing that. Thank you. And I'll make sure I can share it with Dr. Davis so we can then forward it on to you.
Any other questions?
Good?
Long as it's not-
That was,
Do we
wow.
really think there's?
You want me to drop the mic? I can do that.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think the way you explain it really clarifies it, so I think if you just make sure parents are aware of that and have questions, I think they'll perfectly understand where you're going with this and why. It was very clearly explained, just a little bit of question we had about some letters from parents and stuff. I was a little concerned, but once you explain it, I think it makes great sense.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave, one thing I'd say is, as a parent, my oldest going through, sometimes we're learning as we go. And the piece that I think is different from when I was going to school is you're making decisions at middle school that could affect what your student does in high school. And the more we can do with communication on that, I think it's going to help all the way around. So, and I think that's the direction you're going, but just kind of always. Second child, I don't have any issues because I know what to expect. It's as new parents the first time through middle school to high school, it's tough sometimes navigating.
well, it piggybacks and dovetails nicely into the 4 different buildings coming here in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Every building has their own culture, climate, what they expect, what they're used to, what they know. And then now we've got to take every one of those buildings and now make it one. This is how it works and functions here. And that's a real challenge because, wait a minute, this is what I'm used to, and my comfort level is just gone. Well, I can't be like you, Zero Board, Walton, or Harrington.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to number 7, action item, financial. Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs matching grant for the Arts and Education Program. Can you give some background, please, Randy?
Sure. Marshall Public Schools requests a grant of $10,000 to fund the Expert Artist Workshops program facilitated by the Frank Center for the Arts. Through the Expert Artist Workshops program, MPS will partner with FCA, Frank Center, to bring in teaching artists directly to classrooms in Marshall Public Schools, providing workshops for students in creative writing, poetry, visual art, and music. The program piloted in the district during the 2016-17 school year, and since that successful pilot has further expanded. With the support of the MCACA, which is the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs, matching cultural affairs in education grant, MPS will reach a total of 225 children in grades 4 through 12 at 5 schools with arts and cultural programs. The board must now consider approving the in-kind matching grant request at a cost to the district of $10,000 for salaries and benefits for teachers in order for the grant application to be submitted for consideration to the Michigan Council of Arts and Cultural Affairs matching grant for the arts and education program. His recommendation for the superintendent for action item financial be approved as presented.
Entertain a motion, please.
Move for approval.
Discussion.
That's 5 schools.
Yeah, I was gonna ask them.
In your packet in 7A, if you please go to
Middle school, high school,
on page, on page
All
one of the
Harrington. All 25 pages of that grant.
on page one of the narrative,
Gotcha. I see that.
it says Harrington, Hughes, Marshall Middle School, Marshall High School, and Marshall Opportunity. And it gives the numbers of students that would be impacted by that.
is that the one, the line is there,
Roland Walters, no.
Becky, you got a comment on that?
I don't. Do you know where you're gonna pick? Okay, okay. Yes. Hi. I wrote this grant.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer Conley,
I wrote this grant on behalf of the school system, working with our leaders and Becky. This program started out actually in an effort for students to get to know each other more so at the start of the annexation of the middle school. Specifically. So we started in the middle school, and it was really an opportunity for students to express themselves through these different art forms and start to get to know each other's cultures more so. So we started in the middle school and then got asked to go into Harrington to sort of assist with some of the students that are more non-traditional learners. And that non-traditional learning piece really kind of cemented the need of the program and the true assistance for the teachers specifically with those non-traditional learners. So we started at Harrington, the middle school, then we started going into the opportunity school. And then from there, when the middle school started the Hawk's Nest, we moved into the Hawk's Nest specifically. And through my other work in more recent time, we have found that there's a need at Hughes as well in that sense. So, and then in the high school as well. So really, those 5 schools, essentially the grant is to supplement, to add 2 new schools, and to add, because the Frank Center right now has funding for Opportunity High School, Harrington, and Hawk's Nest. We need to now, with this grant, we can go into Hughes and the high school to sort of start expanding even more. We started out doing the program 2 times a year, so teaching artists would come in for a full week and work in the same classroom every day over the course of that week. And then from there, we expanded out to 4 times a year in 3 schools, and now we're trying to do 4 times a year in 5 schools. So that's what this grant is going to assist with. Does that help?
Any questions? Okay, we'll start with Brent.
Yes.
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 Okay. Move on to public comments. Same kind of rules. If you can turn in one of the green sheets that's over there to Kimberly, identify your name, and we'll, I'm going to time it for 3 minutes. I'll let you know when we've hit that point and ask you to wrap up your comments.
Hi, my name is Kehlani Bergard. I teach at the high school. I'm an English teacher. I'm here to talk to you today about the decisions concerning paying Marshall Public School employees, the contracts out for last year and beginning the contracts for the new year, which we are starting early this year. Obviously, we decided as a district. Currently, the current staff have a start date of August 19th, and they will not receive their first payment for that particular year's contract until September 6th. That's a 3-week period, placing us perpetually 1 week behind schedule if you take into account that we usually are paid after 2 weeks of working. Essentially, current staff will not be paid for their current contract for 3 weeks, while new staff that are being hired will not be paid at all for 4 weeks. My husband worked as a manager at Charles River, and he recently had an employee that hadn't been paid for 3 weeks. He immediately called HR and had a check cut that day. He did this for 2 reasons. 1, because he knows what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, and 2, because he knows how difficult it is to go to your new employer and say, when am I going to get my money? I think that 4 weeks is too long to ask our brand new teachers, especially those right out of college paying student debt, to ask them to go without pay. It's an unnecessary burden that we don't need to place on them. Momentarily, you're going to hear from a colleague who went through this struggle, and I think that her story is very powerful. And current teachers, while I understand that a 1-week deficit doesn't seem like that big of a deal, since normally we are paid after 2 weeks, I'd like to appeal to those of you that don't pay taxes until you actually have to pay taxes. Don't have it taken immediately out of your paycheck. We usually do this because we believe that we can invest and work hard and put in the effort to invest wisely, and we can make money better for ourselves than someone else can make for us. I truly believe that I can invest my money wisely and work hard at that, and that I can make money better than having it controlled by a different entity for essentially a 1-week put off for the rest of the year. I know that the only reasons that have trickled down to teachers so far have been either that it would be too much of a hassle to have either 2 weeks back to back, or, and this is just what the teachers have, been told, or that it won't work in the program. I don't think that those are valid reasons to put our teachers behind perpetually for 3 weeks and our new teachers for 4 weeks. I have heard many intelligent compromises that could address these things, and I think that the board should ask 2 questions. 1, why is this decision being made? And 2, what can we do for our employees to lessen the financial burden of beginning work? Thank you.
That was my timer. You think so?
Hello, my name is Bethany Wentz, and I'm a teacher at the high school along with Mrs. Bergard. As she stated, I'm here to also discuss the delay in pay for the 2019-2020 school year. When I moved to Marshall, I ended up going 47 days without pay. Now granted, 7 of those were due to my first paycheck being lost and having to have a new one be cut, but still that's 40 days without pay as an employed adult. This was one of the scariest times of my life. I had planned ahead to try and save up money to bridge the gap because I knew that there was going to be a gap between my old contract and my new contract, but it was still terrifying. And when that first paycheck didn't arrive when it was supposed to, it was even more terrifying. And I had constant worry going on in my mind about money, about paying bills, about buying groceries, about buying gas to put in my car to make it to work, to continue making that paycheck. And even more disappointing, not being able to buy school supplies for my students that I felt I needed to be successful in the classroom. Because as a new teacher in the district, I didn't get a school order right away. So that was a concern for me as well, was just supplying my classroom with things that I needed. There was a little bit of delay in that because I was a new hire. So all of these things went into significant worry that impacted my ability to do my job in the classroom. And like Mrs. Brigard said, it may not seem like that big of a deal when we're talking about 1 week, but it was a big deal for me. It was a huge deal, and it significantly impacted my ability to do my job. One of the goals as a district is to stay competitive with the other schools. And one of the primary reasons cited for teachers leaving a district is administrative choices. This is one of those choices. And I think that we simply cannot make it the status quo to inflict a financial hardship on our new hires in the district. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Hi. First of all, I'd just like to say good evening to everyone. My name is Noah Chappell, and I'm the current secretary of the high school's Pride Alliance. The Pride Alliance is a group comprised of LGBTQ+ members and allies. Our goal is to educate others and to ensure a safe learning environment for LGBTQ members and provide a safe space for students to come to. Today, we have come to address a growing problem at our school, the mistreatment of LGBTQ+ members. As many of you know, Assure has been consistently worn to school, which has the phrase, "It's Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve" printed on it. After many students have shown and demonstrated that this shirt causes a tremendous impact to our education and well-being while attending school, no action has been done. During a meeting I had with Dr. Davis about the shirt, he said that if enough students came forward and said that the shirt causes a disruption to the everyday process of school, he could ask the student to take the shirt off. Since no action has been done, today I've come to ask for your help. As a possible solution, I would suggest maybe adding a section to the dress code outlawing any clothing which expresses hate towards or attacks a group of students at the school. My second point I would like to bring up is the lack of following through with students who have verbally harassed other students for being queer, transgendered, or non-binary. There have been multiple times during this school year and past school years when students have destroyed posters that supported the acceptance of all students regardless of their identity. After the restorative justice actions were taken, the students reverted back to the same behavior of disregard and disrespect. There have also been multiple times when the school administration has asked the members of the Pride Alliance to deal with these situations by talking with the students about their actions, or also known as restorative justice. As a student, I'm supposed to go to school to learn and to be educated and be prepared for the next steps in my life, not asked to miss class and take on the role of a paid employee of the school district. The school's policy about restorative justice simply does not work and is ineffective in this particular situation. The students we had to talk about this issue with took it as a joke and went right back to the behavior the school punished them for. The lack of education the staff members have about this subject is unacceptable. We had to order 350 shirts to show that we are not okay with this situation. This situation should have been rightfully handled a very long time ago. Once again, this is not about some shirt, some locker sign that ripped down. It is the downright mistreatment, unprofessional actions, or lack of actions that I come to ask for your help today. Board of Education, I respectfully ask to offer advice, support, and change to allow all students at Marshall Public Schools to feel safe, secure, and supported. Thank you.
My name is Brandy Maines. My student goes to Marshall High School. He does not hate, he does not hold against, nor does he represent against anybody. None of us do. We look at people and we accept them for who they are. However, just because he doesn't hate against them doesn't mean that he does not have the right to hold his own belief. He also has the right for his First Amendment, for his freedom of speech, as does everyone in this country. It's not in our heart to hate against anybody. He doesn't hate anyone. He just wants to have his freedom to state what he believes. He may not have the popular belief. He may not believe what everybody else believes. But he does have the right to his own belief. And he has the right to share that belief, just as everyone else has the right to share their own. He shouldn't be degraded. He shouldn't be bullied. And he shouldn't be put down for it, as they shouldn't be put down for theirs. He doesn't degrade them. He doesn't yell at them. He doesn't bully them. He simply wears a shirt. And maybe it's not a popular opinion. They don't have to agree with it. They just have to accept him for who he is, just as he accepts them for who they are. He accepts them. He doesn't have anything against them. He just wants them to accept him and his beliefs. And he does have that First Amendment right for his freedom of speech, just as they do. And it's posted everywhere in the high school and all over this country for the LGBTQ and everyone else. There's nothing holding any one of us back from stating anything that we believe. There shouldn't be anything holding him back either, or any other student at that school from saying anything that they believe in their heart. Doesn't mean that they hate anybody. It just means that they believe differently. We have been attacked already here, and that's wrong. We didn't do anything. He wore a sweatshirt, and maybe they don't like it. They don't have to. They just have to accept it. They don't have to agree with it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Destiny Dorsey. I'm here to talk about the sweatshirt thing too. As you talked earlier, Dr. Davis, about the colored shirts and how it's for tolerance, and you brought up racism, my question is, if he's wearing a Nazi shirt to show white supremacists and I had a problem with it, would you do something about it? Because I can't choose to be black, just like everyone else cannot choose their sexuality. And if you want to wear that out in public, fine, that is your belief. I'm not saying he's wrong for his belief. He can believe what he wants. I cannot make him change. But it is a school, and no matter your sexuality, your race, anything, you should be able to go to school and feel safe. And that is bullying. Because he is telling them, he is saying that is wrong. Just like if he wore a shirt of racism, you would do something if a black person said something about it, or a white person. So why, when it comes to sexuality, is it different? I don't choose to be black. Nobody in this room chooses their sexuality, but that doesn't mean that we should be allowed to wear hateful things in a school where we should feel safe.
Even if it was a race issue, yes.
Please address the board. Please address, can you state your name?
My name is Dennis Maines. I am the student that they're all against. And yes, even if somebody wore something with the Nazi flag, they still have a right to wear it. Whether it's right or not, may not be. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to condone somebody's belief, but you still got to treat them the same way you want to be treated. And to come in here and say that he's bullying because he has a different opinion than you do is wrong. They're preaching tolerance, acceptance, unless you don't agree with them or you say what they don't want to hear. It's not hate speech. It's speech they hate to hear. My son has already been right here tonight in this room, was told to F off twice in a row by a person of the LGBT community. The LGBT community has also stated that it's okay for them to do what they want to do, but not for somebody else because they don't agree with it. That's not tolerance. That's not acceptance. That's not equality. I don't agree with a lot of what people say, but they still have a right to say it. I don't agree with the KKK. They still have a right to go out and preach their hate. I just don't go visit. The Black Lives Matter have a right to state what they want to state. Doesn't mean I got to agree with them. A lot of people have different opinions about a lot of things. A lot of people thought Colin Kaepernick was right in doing what he did. Millions of people disagreed and thought it was hateful and disrespectful. But he still had a right to do it. My son has a right to wear his shirt, whether or not they like it or not. They don't stop to look at how other people feel about the shirts that they wore and gave out today. It looks more as pushing LGBT than it is accepting straight people for their opinions. It's more of accept us because we're different, and if you don't, then you're a bigot or you're hateful. That's not the case. You don't have to condone the behavior. That doesn't mean that you don't like them or you hate them. And I think it's extremely unfair for you to allow them to attack him, you just said, in a particular group, going after one particular person to change them or make them feel inferior is bullying. And that's what's going on now, is the opposite people who are offended bullying the person they think is offending them. I have asked them, one particular person, Noah, if he has ever asked him or talked to him about what that shirt represents or why he's wearing it. He said, no, I don't need to. His shirt says everything I need to know. That's not tolerance. And he has actually said and asked to meet with them and talk with them and explain his side and his views. And that has yet to happen. I don't know why, but that is.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't want to say anything tonight. I came with high hopes. My name is Derek Allen. I'm a resident. I am now a parent, just enrolled my young man finally into Marshall Public Schools. It's been a goal for a long time. I also serve as Chief Operating Officer for Star Commonwealth and do serve as a senior trainer in that capacity. I wrote our training, LGBT Youth, from Trauma to Belonging. I have presented nationally at schools and conferences all over the country about how to create safe spaces for LGBT young people. I also am an openly gay man, and my son has 2 fathers and 2 mothers. I've lived that life. I grew up in a religious home where it was not an acceptable orientation and had to go through that with my family. I have been called names. I have been mistreated. I was in high school when Matthew Shepard was murdered and lived in a rural school where I was terrified to tell others who I was for fear for my own safety. I attended a school where same-sex couples could not attend dances, where a GSA certainly would have never been allowed. A lot of things tonight bother me. A lot of things around this controversy have bothered me the last couple of weeks. First of all, I have had the privilege and the honor of working with Dr. Randy Davis for 6 years around creating a safe school system at Marshall for all kids as we entered into that cooperative agreement with Albion. And that was all kids. And Dr. Davis has known my sexuality. He's known my partner all those 6 years. He's always treated me and my family with a tremendous amount of respect. And he has consistently discussed with me ways to create safe spaces for the community and our school system. And I thank him for that. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so proud to be a part of this community, part of this district, and have my son come here. So in leadership, sometimes you have to make difficult choices. Sometimes there's laws that don't make sense. Sometimes you have to do things that maybe are against your gut, and I think Randy sometimes has to do that. Being a superintendent is really friggin' hard. And as a gay man who has gone through great mistreatment and injustice in my life, I've been disappointed by some members of my own community in the ways that they have characterized or mistreated Dr. Davidson, because I think that it's easy to cast stones, but when you're in that position, you have to make some tough choices. Now, with that said, I don't like the sweatshirt. It doesn't make me feel good either. It reminds me of a lot of things from my past. However, I also agree that people have a right to have beliefs that I don't agree with. I don't agree with the Amish lifestyle whatsoever. I don't think women are treated properly in that society, and I don't think kids are educated well enough. But I don't walk around disparaging them. I don't advocate for laws that will mistreat them. I believe that they get to live the way they want to, and I live the way I want to. Yep. I wish people would choose not to wear shirts that hurt other people, but they do have a right to wear it. And I want a school system and a community where people understand that it's not about constantly being offended, but it's about learning how to have these conversations. I want my kids raised in a school where they learn that sometimes they will be offended, and that that's part of what this country is about, and they need to learn how to navigate that, not ask us to protect them from it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm Becky Harrell. I have an autistic 9th grader, and he's mainstreamed and doing very well, thank you. I also have a 7th grader and a 3rd grader at Walters. So about half of you know me on the board. I'd like to encourage you to include the links in your tolerance program because they have really helped. And I know the other thing I'd like to suggest for the middle school is I know we have PBIS programs in each elementary school, and what might help with transition to the middle school is for each elementary school to have the same PBIS program, so that way you have an amount of consistency from building to building, just as an aside. My daughter's quite gifted, and I wanted to thank you for letting her be in the 8th grade orchestra class as well as the 7th grade orchestra class this year. She has done tremendous amount of growth. And what I have come to ask is if you would allow her to audition for the high school orchestra. Having supervised the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders during the last orchestra, I understand why other parents felt the need to ask for our children to be in the 8th grade orchestra due to some challenges in that classroom. So that is what I would like to ask. And I would also like to discourage you from going to 6 periods. Middle school is a time where you really are exploring what you're good at. And whether you're doing orchestra, Spanish, whatever, we have lots of choices. We're in school of choice. We can do anything we want. So I'd like to remind you of the other choices people have, Harbor Creek, Lakeview, and all the programs they have, as well as the choices of being able to homeschool. So I would encourage you to keep the electives and allow the children to explore. And, you know, I have a different point of view because of my autistic son and then a gifted kid. There's a whole spectrum there. But you need to give these kids consistency from the elementary school to the middle school with PBIS programs and allow them to explore the electives. You think you have behavioral issues now, take away the things that they really enjoy doing And even if you don't change the curriculum for your electives year to year, and you have the same thing every year, doesn't matter. Allow them that opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laura Bartlett, and following the same lines as Becky Harrell, I have a 7th grader right now at the middle school who is participating in 7th and 8th grade orchestra. I also have a 4th grader at Walters Elementary. And I appreciate what Bill DeSmith said earlier. I am a first-time parent going through this, working through what the expectations are, how do I help my child grow. I really wanted to bring up the Marshall Music Program at the middle school and high school. I'd like to thank you for having such a program that is outstanding. It has really inspired my daughter. In the 2 short years she's been playing violin, she absolutely loves it. It's by far her favorite class, and it's inspired her to spend countless hours practicing, composing, and transposing music of her own. I'd like to ask your consideration in allowing our accelerated orchestra students and band students to attend high school orchestra while they're in 8th grade. Similar to the system that you currently have in place for accelerated math and science students. I am told it's never been done before, but I'm hoping that this is something that can easily be allowed for those promising young musicians in the future. In addition, I'm really concerned that you're watering down the music program by allowing students or forcing students in this restructure to choose between Spanish or another elective and their music program. Taking 1 hour of electives away will hurt the music program, as there will no longer be as much choice for these students. And the push to only offer college prep courses continues, and we lose out on our arts. Numerous studies show that music instruction benefits kids academically. Studies show that playing music stimulates more parts of their brain than any other activity, and therefore musicians have increased communication between the right and left hemispheres of their brains. Music is a very important part of education and intellectual development. And the music program at the high school already takes a hit because the school day is currently structured so that kids who are interested in the Battle Creek Math and Science Center are not allowed to do that as well as their music program. We have begun looking outside of the school district for other alternatives. We were disappointed to find that the Harper Creek school system, with its impressive facilities, does not have as strong as a music program. Marshall is special and should be aware of this and promote it. I would like to caution the school board to please consider the music program when restructuring the middle school day this year. That you work to retain your talented music students and not lose numbers of participating musically inclined students. I think you have fabulous teachers and students in the program right now. The graduating senior class is extremely talented and showed off a lot of their ability during this most recent class night. And I really hope that you will allow my daughter to progress at an accelerated rate and allow her to continue in orchestra with her current 8th grade peers at the high school next year.
Good evening, Shannon Robinson. I'm here with the Marshall Teachers Association tonight. Wanted to share 2 things that we've done and we are planning to kind of share some of the things that the teachers are doing for the district. Recently, incoming kindergarten students went through kindergarten roundup program, and we pulled them into schools to hear about kindergarten and have the families learn about the district. The Teachers Association purchased $150 worth of books to distribute to those students as they came through the doors to welcome them to Marshall Public Schools. And another event that we have coming up that we'd like to invite you to join is the Hacks for Max golf tournament. That is on Friday, June 28th. I believe it's an 8:57 shotgun start at the Medalist Golf Club. It's a fun day filled with golf dinner, raffles, and prizes. And the most important part is that money goes to help the Marshall Area Community Services, which in turn supports many of our families and our students in many different ways. So that's something that we're sponsoring, and we would love to have you guys join us if you're available. So Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, may I entertain a motion to go into executive closed session to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute, attorney-client privilege. All in favor, say aye.
Do roll.
Oh, you gotta do roll call? Start with Carrie? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
We're gonna do it again.